Good afternoon from sunny Ann Arbor. This is Sujin Kwan from the full-time MBA admissions and program team. I'm joined here by many colleagues on the program team and career development office and students, and I'm really excited to be the first one to welcome you today to Ross. Hopefully you're as excited as we are. It's now June and there's only 2 months left until you guys get here. It's going to go by really fast. So today what we want to do is cover what you can do between now and then, but I wanted to share a little bit about what we're doing behind the scenes. So right now we're planning orientation programming for when you come in early August, and we'll talk in a minute about some of the pre-work and resources available for you to prepare for that and for classes. Lizette and her team are in the process of reviewing your course waiver requests and conducting academic advising appointments, and she'll talk a little bit about that shortly. And then Amy Tuckfield on the left and her team are working with MBA2 student club leaders to plan next year's conferences and other student events. So you're probably looking forward to your last day of work, if you're still actually working, or planning fun travel or maybe some rest and relaxation before moving out here. All those things are a great idea. But the summer will be over before you know it, and we wanted to make sure you do some key things to make your transition to Ann Arbor and back to school as smooth as possible. Oh, first, I forgot to say hello to India and Nigeria and Japan and Brazil and all of the time zones in the US. Thank you guys for participating. This is really fun to be talking to you globally. Back to our regularly scheduled programming. We're going to walk through the major to-dos between now and orientation, so you'll be ready for your classes and career search. And then we have 3 Ross students who are going to share their experience and advice with you. And we'll leave time at the end for your questions, and we'll try to be done by 12:45. I'm going to hand it over to Lizette to talk about the orientation assessments that you're going to be required to complete by July 9th. That's in a month, folks.
Great. Thank you, Sujin. Lizette Korn. I oversee the academic side of the house here in the MBA program office. So I'm sure you've all been super diligent in reading all the emails we've been sending you, and you know that you have a number of assessments that need to be done. So starting with the quantitative skills assessment, this helps get you ready for core classes, so mostly econ and stats, which you're going to be taking in fall A, along with accounting and strategy. Based on the results, it may be recommended that you look into doing our 2-day analytics primer, which will be held August 16th and 17th. Then you have both the cultural intelligence and the mission and model leadership assessments, which will be debriefed at orientation. So be on the lookout for your results after you take those. The management communication competency, you'll submit both an oral and written sample, and those will be assessed by our communication department here. They'll let you know if there's further steps. And then in a little bit, the director of the career development office, Heather Byrne, will talk about the recruiting prep course. So in total, excluding the recruiting prep course, these assessments will take you 6 to 9 hours to complete. So make sure you set enough time aside and don't wait until July 8th.
That was 6 to 9 hours, not 69. So it's manageable, folks. Only in a month, only 6 to 9 hours.
I also want to point out that when you are on the orientation pre-work page, you'll find some additional optional academic resources towards the bottom of that page, including a list of pre-reads recommended by MBA students, an Excel course that you might want to consider taking before starting classes, and you'll also be receiving an invitation to an accounting and finance course put together by Ross faculty, hosted through the Coursera platform. So keep an eye out for those as early as next week. Finally, some additional academic prep resources, again, optional but recommended. So in the quantitative skills assessment, there are some great videos and practice problems that you can take before even attempting the assessment. These are probably better used by students who have some familiarity with the concepts, but I encourage you all to take a look. Analytics primer, like I mentioned earlier, August 16th and 17th. If you score below 75% on QSA, please sign up for that. If you're interested in waiving the accounting core course, but aren't a CPA or haven't taken accounting undergrad courses, the accounting prep course and the waiver exam is something you may want to consider. Fast Track in Finance for those interested in careers in finance or just upping your analytical skills. Mention the Excel primer and the finance and accounting primers, which you'll get invitations to.
So that the quantitative skills refresher videos, is it good for everyone or just a subset?
Yeah, so a lot of those videos are going to start using language that it's best for students who may have had exposure to those concepts already, but it's just been a while. So you took econ a long time ago, and if you just did a refresher, you would do well in some of the questions. But then there are some of the videos that will take you through some basic definitions, but not all of them. So it's kind of a range, though I think best suited for students who've had some exposure to the concepts.
So what if I'm a student who hasn't had any econ, hasn't had any stats, hasn't had any finance? What do you recommend for someone like me?
Yeah, I'm going to recommend that you may want to take a look at those additional academic resources first, located on the orientation pre-work page, because that'll give you a more thorough understanding before you take the quantitative skills assessment.
Okay. What if I took an accounting course? Can I take the waiver exam to see if I pass out?
You can take the waiver exam, but only if you take the accounting prep course that goes along with it.
Even if I've already taken the class?
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
Got it. All right. Moving on. Can you talk to the students about waiving a core course?
Yeah, absolutely. So a number of you have already expressed interest in waiving the core course. Thank you. Approximately, like we can see here, 50% of students waive at least one course. You do need to indicate interest that you want to waive by June 22nd, so that is coming up, and you need to submit documentation showing evidence that you, for example, are a CPA or have taken specific coursework by June 29th. Those will be reviewed by faculty, and then we'll get back to you with results about that.
What are the benefits of waiving a course?
Yeah, absolutely. So the biggest benefit is that if you waive, you fulfill the requirement, and that gives you the opportunity to take additional electives that you may be interested in starting sooner than someone who doesn't waive. Or some people leave that slot open in their schedule and use the time instead to acclimate to coming back to school or put additional time into recruiting.
When will I find out if I'm able to actually waive a course?
Yeah, so we're constantly sending the request to faculty, but everyone will know prior to registration, which will be in mid-August.
And then when do I get to sign up for another class?
Yep, so when registration opens, shortly after orientation, you'll have the opportunity to sign up for additional courses.
And then academic advising appointments. I mentioned those. Why would you recommend that a student do that, or who should do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think everyone should do it. So there's a team of us, and you will be assigned an academic advisor. We will reach out to you directly towards the end of the summer. But in the meantime, you can schedule with anyone whose availability fits your schedule, and we can talk to you about things like waivers, your curriculum while you're here, your goals. If you have questions about FTF, accounting prep, things like that, we're here to answer all those questions.
Okay. If you have further questions about the pre-work or core course waivers, please send them to the MBA program office, and we'll have the email at the end, but it's MBA program office at umich.edu. And then if you have some right now, feel free to put them in the chat box. Now I'm going to turn it over to our friend and colleague, Heather Burns, who is the Managing Director of the Career Development Office. She's going to be your friend pretty quickly here. She isn't already.
Thank you, Susan. Hi, everybody. It's so exciting to know that you're coming on campus soon. I know many of you have already been talking to people on my team. So I've been at Ross for 11 years and started in student life and clubs, and then ran the program office for about 5.5 years, and then moved over to the career office last summer. So I know everything that you're going through right now over the summer, and it's a lot. And I'm going to talk about even more that you're going to have to do. So first I want to talk about the course. Everyone should have gone into the course already and received and registered and gotten started in it. In fact, our first module was already due May 29th, so everybody should have had that completed already, which is why I didn't even put it up on the screen. So the next part is the assessment, taking career leader assessment, and that will take you about a half hour or so. And then you want to schedule your launch appointment, and that's due August 3rd. And the launch appointment with your coach will be much better served if you've already taken the career leader assessment. So I would really encourage you to get started working on this soon, because if everybody waits until the end, there just won't be enough coaching appointments, and you've got to complete this course in order to join one of our FACT groups, which is probably the #1 offering that CDO has for MBA1s. It's one of the best things you can do to get started in your recruiting prep process. So after the launch appointment, you will work on your resume, and you don't really have to do these in any order necessarily, but you do need to follow the deadline. The only one that I recommend people do before the next one is the assessment before your launch appointment. So I know for various reasons people have had to get their resume done early because they wanted to apply for a summer experience, but the goal here is just to make sure you've met all these deadlines. So resume, this one's really important because during career action days, everyone is going to have their resume done, and we will be handing out your resume to your classmates, and we will be going through an exercise where you pretend you're the recruiter. So you don't want to be the person that doesn't have a resume. That will be pretty obvious to your classmates, so not a great first impression. And then finally, the final module is your strategy, and so part of that is, you'll see a lot in the course of different things to do, but part of that is these webinars that we're doing. These are going to be webinars in different functions and industries, and we're going to take a little bit of a deeper dive and go over what the timeline is for recruiting in that area, what parallel plan optimization looks like. So we encourage people to think about recruiting in 2 different ways. But, for example, recruiting for both banking and consulting is not really recommended because of the timeline for recruiting for both of those. So we want to make sure we review that and give you tips on that. And then we're going to talk through each area's significant club happenings and how the clubs support and work with CDO to help your preparation. We will have a student on these webinars who will offer their perspective and share some of their stories. And then we'll also make sure that you are tapped into the function or industry-specific website. You can get to our website in Impact by clicking on the Career tab, or on the Admitted Student Guide we have on the front page, there's a link to our website as well. So these webinars begin June 19th, and they go through like the middle or end of July. I mean, there's 10 of them, so you can find them in the Canvas course. It's Module 6. It's an optional module, and so I really encourage you to do as much prep as possible. One of the biggest things that we hear from students, and I'm guessing our students will talk about this later, is just how much this process really hits you when you get here. So I know some of you may be working, but believe me, it's not going to be it's just only going to get busier for you. And even doing all this prep work for career and for your academics over the summer, in addition to working, is not going to be nearly as busy as you will be when you get here. So now is the time to optimize your time management skills and take advantage of all these things so that you get here and you're prepared.
Heather, you mentioned FACT groups.
Yes.
Can you re-familiarize incoming students with what those are? Because you said those are super valuable for MBA1s.
Yeah, thank you. So FACT groups, FACT stands for Functional Accountability Career Team. They are led by our peer coaches, and they meet weekly to walk you through a curriculum to get you ready for recruiting. So they will go over your Odyssey. They'll do some mock interview questions. You may have to come every week with a little bit of homework. So what's a tech product that's out there right now that you want to talk about? What's something on the front page of the Wall Street Journal that would be important for people to know about? So it's a really great way to break everything down into a weekly meeting to ensure that you stay on track. And it's also great just to be talking with your peers and an MBA too about their experiences and where everybody is at with the whole process.
Awesome. I hear MBAs talk about the fact groups and how they were super helpful. We saw that in the surveys as well. So look out for those when you guys come. The MBA 2s who lead these fact groups are going to be very helpful in your recruiting process. All right, we're now going to move on to the student panel, and we've got 3 students with us who are going to share their advice and their experience as they can remember it from 2 or 3 years ago when they were in your shoes. And so I'm going to have each of them introduce themselves briefly, name, where you're from, what you did before Ross, and where you interned or are going full-time. And Jim, are you on the line?
Hi, Sujan. Yes, I am.
All right, Jim Garin, introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jim, and I will be a third-year URB student this fall, which is a dual degree program between Ross and the School for Environment and Sustainability. I'm originally from Muskegon, Michigan, which is a small town in West Michigan, about 2.5 hours from Ann Arbor. So prior to Ross, I worked as a systems engineer for a private aerospace company, where I worked on satellite technology for NASA science missions. And since coming to Ross, I've become very interested in future mobility technologies, such as autonomous vehicles. And this summer, I will be interning at Ford Motor Company in their autonomous vehicle business strategy group.
Thanks, Jim. Ava.
Hi. Hi, everyone. My name is Ava. I'm from Dallas, Texas, although clearly my fun fact says that I've been other places. Before coming to Ross, I was a technology consultant at Deloitte. And then returning, I'm going actually back to Deloitte, but this time in human capital, which was actually my MAP experience is what sort of led me to change career paths a little bit.
And what was your internship?
I worked for an impact organization called REDF, which is focused on workforce development located in the Bay Area, San Francisco.
Okay, and last but not least, Angela.
Hi, everyone, and congratulations again for being admitted to Ross. I'm Angela from Colombia, South America. I used to work in sales at Oracle as sales manager, based in Colombia, but having customers across Latin America. And for my summer, I was at PwC in Los Angeles working as technology consultant. And now for full-time, I'm going back to PwC, but to Seattle, doing exactly the same.
Wait, so you guys have graduated. What are you still doing in Ann Arbor?
Just taking advantage of our lease, basically, before we move out.
All right, so the first question I want to throw out to the 3 of you is, what did you do the summer before you started the MBA program? From June and July, where were you guys? What were you doing? Ava, let's start with you.
So I actually worked till July 6th. And then I took a short vacation to Aruba with family. I also was simultaneously doing all the prep work that we have to do, and then took the MBA math course, which was to help prepare, just refresh my memory on like econ, accounting, finance, and stats. However, based on what I just saw, things have progressed since I was incoming, so I think you guys are covered in a lot of those places.
Awesome. Angela, where were you in June and what were you doing?
In June, I was finishing working at Oracle, organizing for moving out to the U.S. Most of my time during the summer, I was working in getting all the paperwork ready to come here. It's something that takes a lot of time and that I should have prioritized better. I think that is one of the big learnings I had from my time during the summer and getting ready for this new experience, basically.
And Jim, where were you in June?
I was working for GE Aviation in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where I was working on avionics systems for commercial aircraft. And being close to Ann Arbor, being in Grand Rapids, I was making some of the preparations for my move to Ann Arbor, which made it a lot easier. But even if you're coming from a long distance, you know, the process can be pretty seamless for you as well.
When did y'all stop working?
I stopped July 6th.
I stopped June 30th.
August 6th for me.
August 6th. Wait, did you stop the day before orientation, Jim?
Yep, pretty much.
And would
Drove
you
down the
advise
road,
that?
but I would definitely not advise that, and that's one of my lessons learned that I'm going to share.
So that's my next question. In hindsight, what would you have done differently that would have made the move to Ann Arbor easier? Let's start with you, Jim.
Yeah, so I wish I would have left definitely more time to ease into the transition to Ross. I worked up, as I mentioned, until the first week of August, and because of that, had a conflict that made me miss part of the Impact Challenge as well, which I believe is an important opportunity for developing early connections with your section, especially.
We didn't pay him
so
to say that either.
Yeah. Yeah, so definitely had some FOMO there, missing out on that. Also, another piece of advice, what I wish I would have done is, if you're moving with a partner, definitely be attentive to their preparation and transition as well, not just your own. Help them get set up to succeed early, such as by getting involved with a partners club to find a core group of friends that can help make the transition easier.
Jim was in the doghouse for a little while.
That's right. That's right. Lesson learned.
But what would you have done differently to make the move easier?
I might have actually spent a little bit more time enjoying and not worrying too much, because my vacation was like a 3-day vacation. So you get really busy, as everyone has alluded, and it's kind of like the calm before the storm. So yes, you're doing all this prep work, but you're also like, it's on your schedule and your own time. And so having that sort of quality time before coming to school, especially if you want to use that time to spend more time with your family, because it will get really difficult to manage all of that once you're here.
And even during the breaks, we find that a lot of students, instead of going home, they'll take trips with classmates. So you may not see your family as much as you might have thought you would. Angela, what would you have done differently? You were coming from outside of the U.S., so I'm sure that presented a whole host of additional challenges to move here.
That's right. I think in my mind there are 3 things that I will have done differently. First, prioritize the visa application process, because you have to demonstrate you have enough money to come to the U.S., and that means if you need loans, you have to do that process, translating a lot of documents. And I thought it will be easier, and it took a lot of time, many documents going back and forth, and it took me almost 2 months when I was planning it to take a couple of weeks. So I will have done that differently. The second thing will be the money budgeting. I did my own budget based on what I thought it would be. But when I came here, I realized that there are many things that I wasn't counting on, not because I need them, but things that I would like to do. As Sujin mentioned, there are opportunities to go to trips with classmates, and I didn't include that in my budget, so that will be important. And also, as an international student, I realized that transferring the money from one place to the other requires some additional work and analysis, and doing that with time and checking if you should ask for money in the U.S. instead of in your home country, because transferring is more difficult. It's something I should have done. And the last thing will be packing less and packing smarter. The dress code in my home country is different than here. So for recruiting opportunities, I realized that I have to buy like a suit and new clothes here. I think for guys it's not an issue, because you can wear a suit anywhere and it's fine, but for women it's totally different. So I end up buying some clothes here. Also, the winter clothes, I end up buying them here in Ann Arbor. So I could just pack a couple of things, and it will be much easier than how it was.
That's really useful advice. So now think back to August, first day of orientation. What was your mood then? How were you feeling?
I'll start. I was excited because I was going to meet new people, but I was also kind of apprehensive and a little nervous. Because you do meet a lot of people in a very short amount of time, especially for the introverts out there who need their time for themselves. It was a little bit overwhelming. It was still exciting, but you kind of have to manage your expectations.
I was very surprised of how smart everybody was. That was a very good surprise. In the orientation week, we have many opportunities to work with classmates, and I learned many things from them. And I started noticing that will be the dynamic for the rest of the MBA experience. and that is one of the things I like the most. And also, I realized that it was more busy than I thought it would be. So I will try to like plan things better and make sure that you are doing all the things that are important for you in that week.
And Jim, orientation, first day. How are you feeling?
Yep. Well, so my first semester in my orientation as an MBA 1 was actually during my second year on campus due to the dual degree. So even though I already had experience being on campus, at times it was still a bit overwhelming. I committed to a lot of things at Ross, and I still had quite a few obligations at my other school. So all that kind of came together. But what would have made it easier is if I had done a gut check beforehand and limited some of my commitments to the 2 or 3 things that made the most sense for me and my goals. And so that's definitely a piece of advice that I want to communicate here.
So what I'm hearing from all of you is the importance of knowing what you want, being focused about it, and not trying to spread yourself too thin, finding the place where you can collect your thoughts and focus on what you want to get out of it. Think back to the middle of first term, fall A. Now you're in the thick of classes, going to recruiter presentations. What was your mood then?
I can start. Getting back to school after so many years was difficult at the beginning because it's overwhelming, it's in a different language, and I haven't been in a classroom for more than 5 years. So getting adjusted to it took some time, but once I did it, I think things went smoothly. My first advice in that case will be make sure that you have everything in your calendar. We run our agendas based on Google Calendar, and it's very important that you start doing that because you won't have much time available, and it's important for you to also schedule that time that you want to have for yourself. And the academics, I think if we get admitted at Ross, we have all the skills we need to do good at academics. It's only about prioritizing the things you're more interested in and make sure that those things are things you will commit the most amount of time.
Angela mentioned Google Calendar and blocking off time, and I can't stress that enough. Even if it's blocking off time for personal things, it's not just for group meetings or for interviews, but if you don't block it off, you probably won't do it. We're going to have a session after orientation, the week before school starts, on Gmail and Google Calendaring and time management, and I encourage you to consider attending that. That's going to be run by a current student. They're going to share their tips on how to manage your schedule because it's going to get crazy. Ava, what do you remember about the middle of first term?
So I remember, again, sort of the recurring theme of being overwhelmed and not knowing how much time I should have been spending on my sort of homework outside of class versus how much social time versus career. All 3 are important, but you can't do all 3 100% all the time. So my one advice in terms of career would be, and I think Heather already mentioned that you guys are going to do this, is know the timeline for the areas in which you're trying to recruit. And that way you can base your schedules and sort of think about how you want to prioritize those 3 things that I mentioned. And also know that fall A is probably going to be the most challenging because you're getting back to school and trying to learn how to be a student again, as well as doing all these other things. It does get easier. You might think that fall A is like so overwhelming, but just trust the people that have come before you. It will get better.
Jim, how about you? First term, middle of the first term. Where was your head?
Yeah, so middle of the first term for me, I was actually starting to hit a pretty good groove. I had just finished the planning and implementation of a conference at Ross, and so I was able to offload some of my responsibility and not take on too much at that point and really align what my activities were with my goals, as has been previously mentioned here. And so that really helped me to open up my calendar to really focus on the things that I think would add the most value to me, which made life a lot less stressful and also was able to enjoy being on campus a lot more.
Great. Last official question. What advice do you have for students as where they are now to make their transition as smooth as possible and not overwhelming? Because it's going to be overwhelming. How can they minimize it?
I will say that my the best thing that you can do is try to reach out with other students that are currently at Ross or other admitted students. I didn't have the opportunity to come to Ann Arbor before starting classes, but through the Latin American Business Association and also with the tools that the admission teams made available for us to communicate with other admitted students, I was able to do some things that helped me make the transition easier. And I had always some people I can rely on for asking questions like how far is this apartment from school, or what type of winter clothes should I take, or what things should I pack. So that is, it's important. And also because you want to arrive here with some friends, I decided to move in with people that were not from my home country in order to practice my English and make sure that I will have some friends different from the ones that I knew I will have. And I think that was a great idea because that allowed me to know more people, other cultures, and also to make the transition easier here.
That's great advice. And you guys are roommates, right? Ava and
Yeah.
Angela?
We became roommates after our first year. We actually met through other roommates who are in the same section.
Wonderful. So Ava, what's your advice for them?
I think it's the concept of FOMO, the fear of missing out, keeps coming up, and I think you kind of have to accept what it is that you want to do and how overstretched you want to be. So, for example, you think you've planned everything out, and then some social activity comes up or some club event comes up, and it's okay to like drop something else and do that thing. It's just that you have to know yourself and what makes you happy. So for me, I know I needed to make sure I got enough sleep, and so I would definitely, there were times when I'd say no to things because that was important to me, and others felt differently. So feel comfortable being who you are and don't try to be sort of a chameleon and match what everyone else around you is trying to do.
That's great advice. Jim, what are your pearls of wisdom?
So I would say to try and be present in the current moment as much as possible. When I'm present in the moment, it leads to much higher quality interactions and much better learning experiences. Now, it is difficult because sometimes it's hard with so many things competing for your time and with long to-do lists, but being mindful of this will help put things in perspective and help you tune into the things that are really most important.
Awesome. That's sage advice from 3 of our students. Wanted to share a few more tips that we've gathered from other rosters. First one is take advantage of the pre-term academic resources. It'll make the first term less daunting. I can't tell you how many times I heard from MBA ones this year, I wish I would have done some accounting prep. I wish I would have brushed up on econ or learned how to do Excel. It's too late for me now, and I fell behind because other students knew it. So take the advice of MBA ones. Try to do as much of the pre-term academic stuff as you can, because it'll just ease your transition into this class, the life of being a student again. Secondly, brush up on or learn the basics of Excel and PowerPoint. You'll need it. Definitely, you're going to use it in almost all of your classes and your projects. The students who know the shortcuts, they're just going to have an easier time of it. And you're probably going to use it in any job that you will have if you don't already. So it's a good idea to know those well. Don't wait till the weekend before orientation to move here. It'll save you a lot of stress. Take it from Jim. Don't do what I did. And you heard from all of them. Think about your goals and priorities now, because you're easily going to get distracted by the next cool thing that comes along, the conference or the career path or the social activity. Think about what's important to you before you get into this craziness called MBA life, and then that'll help you focus more once you get here, that you're being true to yourself. Final tips for a smooth transition. Orientation starts Monday, August 6th, and it goes through Wednesday, August 15th. Plan for full days. I say that because a lot of students will say, well, I wanted to finish up some work projects. I haven't quite quit yet, and I wanted to get those done. You're not going to have time to work on a project because it's going to be pretty immersive throughout the 2 weeks of orientation. Secondly, read the new student alerts and review the master checklist weekly. And we only send it to your UMich email. So if you've sent us another email, you're going to miss it. These will have deadlines. It will have key information for your transition. If you miss it, you're going to miss out on a lot. So you may be behind if you don't read it. Finally, Angela mentioned that she connected with students through different communications You can do that through Slack if you haven't joined already. It's a great resource for asking each other questions, and then we've got some current students on there as well who can answer your questions. So those are the official tips and advice from the program office, the career development office, and our students. We want to open it up for your questions. We've got a whole group of us here, and we'll answer whatever you got. So let's get started for the next 5 to 10 minutes on those.
So a lot of the questions are around academic, and if we don't get to your questions, we will make sure that we reach out to you and email you individually. But for the first question is for our student alumni panel, and it was, what is your favorite non-core course that you've taken at Ross and why? And then, Angela, specifically for you, are you still using that iPod?
I can answer first. So I bought an iPod Video, which was very expensive at the time, and I paid with coins. But after I ended up using it, I gave it to my sister, and my sister loved it. So I don't have it anymore.
What is it? She's still using a really old iPod. Oh.
Okay, so what was your favorite the non-core course at Ross, and why?
So I took a course my second year, which you can actually take in the second semester of your first year if you want. It's a social entrepreneurship class taught by Chris White, and it's about basically how to make sort of an impact internally from an organization. People think that they need to like quit their jobs and like go off and do something. You don't have to do that. You could be making small but incremental changes within an organization. And we touched on a lot of topics, including like social justice, as well as sustainability. And I highly recommend that course.
My favorite course was Leading Organization in Changing Times. I think that is the title. It's also known as the CEO class. And I really like it because it's taught by a former CEO of JetBlue. We have the opportunity to meet many CEOs during that class, and we have also the opportunity to present as a board to our classmates who will ask questions that will challenge us. So I think it's a great class for put yourself into the shoes of executive, and it's what we will be doing 5 years from now. So it's a great way to prepare for it.
Jim, how about you? What has been your favorite so far?
So I actually haven't taken any non-core courses at Ross yet. I just took all the core last year, but I can share what my favorite core course was Management Organizations core course. My teacher was Maxim Sitch, and he was a great professor, really great at communicating the material, and very much enjoyed that class since you learn about negotiations and organization structures and all things that I hadn't had much experience with as an engineer.
And going into it, being an engineer, did you think that you would enjoy it as much as you did?
I did not. In the past, I've been very technical, very focused on the numbers and the quantitative, but being in that class made me really appreciate the qualitative and the people part of the equation. So it was definitely eye-opening, and definitely had some aha moments throughout that course.
And for Angela and Ava, what did you guys major in?
I was management science, which is like industrial engineering.
Okay.
I'm electronics engineer and mathematics.
Oh, all of you guys are.
Yeah.
If you didn't have analytics in your background, how did you find the quant courses? Okay, so you have had some analytics in your background. How did you find the quant courses anyway?
I think they were still challenging because of the short time period. Like statistics, it was like 6 weeks class, and then the 7th week is the final exam. And although I had taken statistics in undergrad, and I also actually have another master's in which I took a statistics course, I still found the pace to be challenging. So even if you think you're like decent at math and quant, like it wouldn't hurt for you to do some pre-work before coming to campus.
Great advice. How about you, Angela? What do you think?
Yeah, I feel the same way. And as an international student, even if you know some of the terms, the language might be a challenge because some things you know in your language are differently in English, and getting into that takes some time. So I will recommend besides like getting prepared just to have your skills ready, also check a little bit of vocabulary, business vocabulary, statistics vocabulary, because that will make things easier.
Okay. Amy, another question.
Yeah, another question. If you're a MacBook owner, do you recommend also getting a PC laptop for using Excel?
I am a MacBook owner. I struggle a lot for the Excel classes, but Ross has an excellent resource that is a virtual machine. So I didn't have to buy a PC. There are some virtual machines available, and you can use your laptop, get into the internet, access that virtual machine, and work in Excel for the classes that's needed. So there are resources for you not to buy the PC.
Awesome. Jim, or anyone, this could be for you. Are there any natural breaks in the semester when hosting my partner in Ann Arbor that'd be feasible? So it looks like we have someone who's going to have a long distance partner, and any periods to actually avoid them not coming in to make sure they get some quality time.
Okay. Jim?
Are there any natural breaks?
Yeah, natural
Sorry, what was the
breaks
question
are
again?
good times for partners to come and visit.
For partners to come and visit. Well, fall break is definitely there on the calendar, and I also found it, kind of the middle of a quarter is a little bit more of a downtime in terms of workload. When you first start some of the courses, there's a lot to kind of front load the course, and then obviously at the end with putting together the final projects and the studying for exams. So kind of in the middle portion of the quarters are definitely better for visiting and for partner time.
I'd also add, depending on where this person's coming in, if you're not flying out for Thanksgiving, because the Thanksgiving break is pretty short, that could also be, which is also in the middle, but it would be also a good time for someone to come into Ann Arbor.
One or two more questions, Amy.
Yeah, so one question that we had is, can I be part of more than one FACT group? For Heather.
No, we do ask that people join one FACT group. You can switch if you get here and a couple weeks in you decide that that's not really the right path for you, then we do allow you to switch. But part of our goal is to get you to focus on something so that you're more successful in the search. Because if you are spread all over the place and trying to recruit in multiple things, that only ends up coming back to haunt you in the end. So we do want you to work hard over the summer on this course to identify what area you want to go into so that you can select that one FACT group. But just know, too, that there's a lot of other resources. If you want to go into, you want to be a product manager at a tech firm, I would encourage you to join the marketing club and the tech club. So you're going to get different resources from different places that can help complement if for your parallel plan in recruiting.
Okay. And then our final question is, does orientation end on the 15th or the 17th? And we've actually been hearing this a lot from many incoming students. So orientation officially does end on the evening of August 15th. The analytics primer, which is optional, but highly, highly, highly encouraged for those students. It will take place on the 16th and 17th. And as Lizette already alluded to, course registration is also going to take place in that time period. We really encourage students to take those couple days, if they're not attending the analytics primer, to actually settle into Ann Arbor, set up your utilities, unpack, because right when you come back from MTREC, if you are going on an MTREC or doing any other travel, you're going to be hitting the ground running with the start of classes. So I hope that answered your question.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us this afternoon, evening, night, wherever you are, morning. And we're really looking forward to welcoming you guys here in August or July for some of you who might be coming earlier. We're going to be around. Our email address is up there. We're always accessible. We can't wait for you guys to come. Hope you guys are just as excited as we are. Happy summer, and take the advice of our students. Don't wait till the last minute to come, but do try to enjoy your summer and do all of the academic prep and career prep that you need to do. Until August, see ya. We're over and out. Take care.